before we start, I think it's appropriate to, assuming you're all here to hear more about the Yeshiva Netzach, Westchester Torah Academy, I think it's appropriate to give a round of applause to Kevin and the entire board of, the people that will become the board of trustees, the development board, for all the incredible work that they've done. So many hours, so many days, so many weeks and months spent so we could all be here this evening. Let's give them a warm round of applause. It's been an honor to be part of this discussion. I told them during the interview process, even if I'm not the head that you choose, just to be engaged in this discussion. If you choose somebody else, I'll get to join your board. I'm going to be a consultant. I want to be part of this discussion. So it's been an honor to be part of a group of people that are so forward-thinking. And we'll have time to address your specific concerns either in the Q&A session afterwards, or when you'll find me privately, I'll be available to you. A little bit about me. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York called Schenectady. You probably will have a hard time spelling that, but it's right next to the capital of New York, Albany, and small town with small town values. And from a very young age, I noticed that I was really into education. I started my own music program at my school when I was in elementary school. We started a group called Ruach Revival. It was an excuse that I could bring my keyboard to school every week and teach my friends some songs, and we would sing them on Fridays and get the whole school involved. And we revived the Ruach in our school. And I worked at summer camp and taught children there and ran music there and did NCSY Shabbatones. And in high school I went all over the country to play music at the Shabbatones in Chicago and the Midwest. And eventually, as a college student, I went to do the counterpoint programs in South Africa and Australia. And what really drew me to my own sense of spirituality and Yiddishkeit was music. And this combination of teaching Torah through music was really, that was really my MO. That's who I was, that's who I am. As an adult, I went on to study psychology at Yeshiva University, and I learned for my master's in education and administration at Azrieli, and then Smicha at Reitz at YU. And it was a beautiful combination of the two things that I was most passionate about, teaching and Torah. So then I began my formal teaching at Ramaz in Manhattan, and I taught Talmud and Halacha and music to nursery, K, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 8th grade. And I did a lot of observing. I observed every teacher that I could, and I read everything I could get my hands on. And I had a myriad of mentors, and I was just driven by everything I saw. And it was at some point in my teaching career at Ramaz when I got a phone call asking if I would ever consider coming back to my hometown to lead my current day school, the school that I grew up with, a Hebrew Academy of the Capital District, Beit Shraga. Somebody came over to me this evening to tell me that they met Shraga Arian, the founder of my school, and it's called Beit Shraga. Shraga started about 50 years ago. We're celebrating our 50th year. Somebody met Shraga Arian, a very, very famous personality in the world of Jewish education. So how could I say no to that? I've never been a principal before. I said, I'll give it a try. If I mess it up, I'll just go back to Ramaz. So I enjoyed the experience. I was able to be the boss of my old teachers. And the kids had nothing on me. I knew all the hiding places. And so it was really, really fun. It's been a great 6 years. There have been some easy years, some hard years, some in between. And I learned how to do everything. I had to learn how to fundraise, how to recruit, how to supervise Judaic studies teachers, how to supervise general studies principals, twice my age. I had to work with the board. I had to discipline students and work with parents on very, very sensitive and challenging behavioral, academic, and social issues, and everything in between. One of the best experiences that I had as a emerging leader of a Jewish day school was to be recruited as a fellow in the Day School Leadership Training Institute. It's a program funded by Avichai, and its mission is to train cohorts of leaders who are going to be the leaders of the Jewish day schools in the country. And they take about 15 fellows every 2 years, and I had an opportunity to really be part of this robust, high-quality professional development experience with a group of 15 cohort members. And it was absolutely fantastic. Run by a group of mentors who have been heads of schools for 20 or 30 years at very successful schools all over the country. Ultimately, I learned what works in a school and what doesn't. And as I collaborated with peers in the field at Peach, Partnership for Excellence in Jewish Education, and the Solomon Schechter Day School Network, and Ravsak, and my friends from YU who are running YU-based schools. I noticed right away that all the challenges were the same. We were all dealing with the same stuff. It didn't matter whether I had 100 kids in Albany and they had 800 kids in some large Jewish community that you've all heard of somewhere in the US. It was the same story. When I received the phone call from WTA, from Yeshiva Netzach, I immediately did my homework. I studied their plans, both educational and financial. I visited the school in Teaneck that had already been established. I asked questions to my mentors. I did some research. And I said this was an invitation that I have to explore further. It appeared that this group of people were working towards a solution that all principals of basically all Jewish day schools are dealing with. And it's a problem that's not getting better. But here, we get to start from scratch. We get to start with the future. We're going to be able to build a culture instead of changing a culture. Anybody that's read a book on changing corporate culture or culture in the nonprofit world knows that it's, you could say impossible, you could say difficult, you could say it takes a very, very long time. And this was an opportunity to not fire bad teachers, to not throw out old curriculum. We have a clean slate. So WTA, for me, is the opportunity of a lifetime. And it's not just making yeshiva day school education more affordable, it's making it better. We're going to talk about that right now. So what makes this school unique? I'd like to say 4 things. The first is the learning experience. Our students are going to be active and independent learners. In the world of education, students should be learning from a variety of resources around them. Other students, teachers, books, computers, the world. Children were born with the capacity to ask their own questions, to explore the contrasts that excite them, to construct their own connections, so long as they're actively involved and engaged in learning. This is not a chiddush. This is not a new idea. This is an old idea. If you Google John Dewey, you can learn more about it. He said, children learn best by doing. No connection to his name, Dewey. That's not a connection. They can do that if they're given a chance to be independent and to have individual opportunities. In addition, the notion of academic rigor has been redefined. The skill set necessary for our students today, in today's changing world, is different than what we grew up with. Harvard professor Tony Wagner was asked, what is academic rigor? And you may wonder, is it maintaining a large body of cultural knowledge? Is it retrieving information from your memory? Is it making mathematical calculations speedily and accurately? And the answer is, surprisingly, none of the above. Instead, Tony Wagner says, we need something called the 21st century skill set. The skills that are going to be at a premium for our children are different than what we grew up with. Besides the 3 R's, which are obvious, our children are going to need to learn to collaborate, to think critically, to solve problems in a group, to access and analyze new information. This is the skill set of the 21st century classroom. So how will we achieve this sense of independence, this sense of individualized 21st century learning? The answer, we've come to believe, is in a classroom that has a structure made up of different kinds of learning environments, something we call blended learning. And you're probably wondering, what does a blended learning classroom look like? Is that what you're wondering? That's for audience participation. Is that what you're wondering? Okay, thank you. So please look up here. As I said, it's a combination of environments. It's face-to-face learning with teachers. It's experiences where children can work in groups, work on projects, and get a little dirty. And online learning, where they can be sitting at computers and learn from all that's available to them. So here's what the classroom looks like. There's a series of learning centers. In the center of the classroom is a community space. This is when they work together as a whole group. So there are times when you want to work with all 25, 28 children at once. What do we do as a whole group? We daven together. We can share. We can do show and tell. We can have guest speakers. We're going to get into each category directly, but you can also see there's an in-class learning lab where the children sit at computers for a short period of time for every subject matter. There's teacher-led instruction, where the teacher sits with a small group of students at a time. There's a spot for group work where children can work together on projects. And finally, some spots where they can work on their own. Some children want to work by themselves. Why can't we let them? Here's the community space. See, they're all discussing something. Maybe they're talking about the weather, or doing the morning greeting, or singing a song, or davening. Here they are listening to somebody talk. Do they all look engaged? Is there one or two of them that are spacing out? Probably. That's why this can't be the learning environment all day long. It's not appropriate. How about here? They're listening to the officer speak about safety. Are they all paying attention? I hope there are no parents of these children in the room. Oh, whoops. I'm sure your kids were paying attention. Or somebody told them to look the other way for the picture. The computerized learning is going to take you some time to think about it. It's when children sit at computers and have an opportunity to progress on their own. They can go faster if they're ready to go faster. They can go slower if they need more practice. Whether it's math, or Mishnah, or Ivrit, or reading comprehension, they can do it at their own pace. And the teacher can make data-driven decisions. They don't have to wait 3 weeks for the unit exam to know how a student's doing. They can have a printout every day of how the child did on a given skill, at a given time, in a given subject. That's one of the advantages of the computerized learning content providers. You'll hear more about that in a bit. Here are some, let's say, first graders playing some Talam games, maybe Ariot games. My son is not in a blended learning school, but he loves those games. Do the children look engaged? Do you think that they're going to sit there and space out? Do they look like they're enjoying it? Raise your hand if you have children that like computer games. Okay, there's a lot to be learned on computer games. Read some of the literature, you might be shocked. Computer games are a powerful learning tool. Computers don't replace the teachers in blended learning. And a large class doesn't mean that children get less attention, it means they get better attention. The teacher's going to work with a small group at a time. They're going to sit at a rainbow table, at a moon-shaped table, so they can be a foot away from each kid. It's not 1 on 25 or 1 on 18. It's 1 on 6, 1 on 10, and the teacher can sit right near them. She can see exactly what they're doing, if they're holding the pencil right or if they're holding the pencil wrong. She can see how they're forming their letters. Every day she's working with a small group. The kids have an opportunity to talk to the teacher. In a typical classroom, think about it. You have 25 kids and one teacher. How much talking time does a kid get during the 45-minute math lesson? Is it 60 seconds or 65 seconds? So that's the teacher-led section. This is the most fun. The group work section. Children need to talk. It's not that only that they like to talk, they need to talk. Why is it that we tell them to be quiet and to listen to the teacher? Why is it that what the teacher says is more important than what the student says? Why is it that students aren't allowed to daydream and talk to each other, to construct their own learning? Why do we beat the creativity out of them? These kids having fun? Are they working together? Are they learning something? Are they doing something? If children learn by doing something, are they learning? How about here? They have an opportunity to work as a group, to resolve their own conflicts, to try out different parts of being in a group. Maybe one's the recorder, and another one's the reporter. And maybe another one is the timekeeper. And maybe another one is the group manager. And maybe they're figuring out what roles they like and what roles they don't like. Maybe the kid that's quiet gets an opportunity to lead sometimes. And maybe they get to talk about what it's like to work in a group afterwards. Maybe they debrief with the teacher. But how did that feel? How about here? Okay, they're getting messy with glue. They're building something. We don't have to talk about what a kosher sukkah is. We can build one. Kids learn more when they get to do things. when science is exploration, when we pay attention to their imaginations and we let them use them. And here's the classroom. See, it's a combination of things going on at the same time. Children don't go to school and sit down at a desk in a row and open their textbook to a particular page. They learn at their own pace, their own style. So there's a learning lab, and there's group project session, and there's some teachers working with students, and it all happens at the same time. This is what blended learning is. And there are many benefits. We've covered most of them. They're academic benefits. The teacher knows exactly what's going on with every student every day. Children get to go at their own pace. They can go faster, they can learn more vocabulary words, they can learn harder vocabulary words. When you have 20 children and 2 of them are Israelis and you're doing a Hebrew lesson, the Israelis they can be challenged also. They can read harder literature. They can be tested differently. The social benefits we discussed. The financial benefits, we will turn to them in a bit. So what do you think? That's just the curriculum. That's just the formal learning. But that's not where it ends. That's not where the school ends. That's not why people create a school. That's not the only reason. That's not the only thing that we teach our children. We teach our children about menschlichkeit. We teach them that menschlichkeit matters. And we teach our teachers the role of role modeling. Students are always watching you. So we need you to be tocho kabara. We look for people whose insides are the same as their outsides and whose outsides are the same as their insides. And teachers who are going to be sensitive and stop the class when they have to talk about something that just happened at recess, that they can all learn from. The teachable moments. And they allow the children time to reflect and to think about their own actions and their own conflicts. To think about, how do we choose teams at recess so kids in the end don't feel left out? And how do we choose chavrutas and learning groups so that kids don't feel left out? How do we think about our actions and how we treat each other? How do we embrace diversity in Jewish practice? How do we not tolerate, not only accept, but appreciate the differences of where our friends come from? Some of our friends have moms who cover their hair. Some of our friends who have moms who don't cover their hair. Some of our friends come from homes who have fathers who daven every day with a minyan and put on tefillin, and some of us have friends who don't have fathers who have that practice. But how do we learn to enjoy each other, to respect each other, to admire each other, and to accept who we are? And that's not enough. It's not enough to only interact with our fellow first graders or kindergartners. What about the other people who are not like us? What about the elderly? If we want our children in kindergarten and in first grade and second grade to be able to learn and enjoy the company of their grandparents and the elderly or the sick, we have to give them opportunities to be around those people and provide experiences where they can learn how to interact with different types of people. So that's the second thing that I think is going to be an important feature of our school. Thirdly, Jewish practice is going to be meaningful. And we are constantly going to be on a search for meaning. Teachers, students, and the leadership of the school, and the head of school are all going to be in a constant search. It's not enough to read the text, and to know the text, and to learn the text, and to be able to sing it, and daven with it, and learn from it. We need to know how it affects our lives, how we apply it to real life. How does this make me closer to God? Why is tefillah so hard for children? Middle schoolers, high schoolers, forget about it. What's so hard about it? It's so hard because we spend so much time teaching them the words and to say them quickly before the chazan gets to that point, and we don't spend enough time teaching them that this is an opportunity to talk to God and to think about God. And if you don't connect to the words, then forget the words. That's not the point. The point is, in its very basic form, to connect to God. So how do we celebrate and prepare for Chagim? Do they transform us every year? These are the things we're going to be thinking about as we pursue meaningful Jewish practice. And finally, parent partnership. Is any of this good stuff going to be possible without you? We will know your child as a learner better than you do. And you will know the child as a person better than we do. And if we don't collaborate, and if we don't talk, and if we don't listen to each other, and you don't share your parenting philosophies, and we don't share our teaching philosophies, The only person that's going to be losing out is your child. So you're going to trust us, and we're going to trust you, and we're going to listen to you, and we're going to value your feedback, and we're going to ask for it regularly. And when we send you the parent survey every year, we're going to expect you to fill it out and to participate. And that's going to be the basis of our reflection and our plans as we move ahead. It's inappropriate to bring a group of Jews together and not give them food, we did that part. But it's also inappropriate to bring a group of Jews together and not have one little piece of Torah. So I was shocked today to find out that the Hebrew date is Yud Bet Kislev, and we are very, very close to Hanukkah. Hanukkah is on what day of Kislev? Kaf Hey, right? Hanukkah. You need a way to remember that. Chanu, when? On Kaf Hey, 25th of Kislev. It's coming right up. So it's time to prepare a little bit. How do we prepare? We ask our children questions. And I don't mean, what do you want for Hanukkah? Okay? Or what are you going to get daddy for Hanukkah? That's not what I mean. We ask our children questions. What is Hanukkah? My Hanukkah. What's the point of Hanukkah? What is the Ben Adam L'Chavero Avoda of Hanukkah? What is the purpose of Hanukkah? How does it make us better people to celebrate Hanukkah? I'm not about to answer that question, but those are some questions that interest children. You can ask them, when was the first Hanukkah? When was the first menorah invented? What's the difference between the Hanukkah and the menorah? Those are some questions you can ask your children. Those tickle 6-year-olds if you ask them those questions. But my question for you, my Hanukkah. So how do we celebrate Hanukkah? So the Talmud tells us 3 words. 3 words. Ner, Ish, Uveito. A candle, a person, and his household. That's it. One candle. One candle. So in Mikey Davis's house, on the 7th night of Hanukkah, if he has 17 members of his family, they light 1 candle. The Gemara goes on to say, if you want to do Mahadrin, you want to do a step better, Ner lekol echad v'echad. So on the 7th night of Hanukkah, in Mikey Davis's house, if there's 17 people, you light. This is audience participation. 17 candles. But if you want to do it the best way, Mahadrin min ha-Mahadrin. Everybody knows, if you ask the 3rd graders about the Machloket Beit Hillel and Shammai, what do they argue over? Everybody will tell you. Do you go up with candles or do you go down with candles? Right? Okay. Rav Avigdor Nebenzahl, the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, of the old city, chance where I had a chance to spend many years in Eretz Yisrael, and many Chagim in Eretz Yisrael, and it's a place that's very dear to my heart. It's going to be very dear to our school. And he asks the following question. Wait a minute. You want to do the mitzvah a step better, and then 2 steps better, you add more candles? Why add more candles? How about, what if you have a bigger menorah? Or a golden Chanukiah? Or light the Chanukiah in the highest room of your house? He says, no. What do? We add candles. Because what are we doing to celebrate Hanukkah even better? We're adding light. And what is light? La Yehudim Haita Ora B'Simcha V'Sasson. Ora Hi Torah. We're adding Torah. That's what the Greeks were trying to beat out of us. The Syrian Greeks were trying to kill our Torah, our learning, our Jewish values, our way of life, our Chazal, our Halacha. They were trying to get rid of everything that brings us together. So what do? We add more of it. My bracha to you, and to our school, and to myself, my bracha for us, is that this Hanukkah, we think about what does that mean to add light to our lives? What does that mean to add Torah? Possibly not building a bigger menorah or a golden menorah, a more expensive menorah. What does it mean to add more value, more education, more light to us? That's my bracha as we grow from strength to strength. Thank you.